Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Setting the Direction for Negotiation in 2026, a unified conversation with SMARTnership partners. We're delighted to have you with us today as we explore emerging strategies, real-world insights, and future directions in negotiation, together with an outstanding group of certified SMARTnership partners from around the world. Joining us first is Tin Anneberg, who brings extensive experience in high-value technology negotiations, including work with global organizations such as IBM and KMD. Jason Meyerowitz brings over 2 decades of negotiation experience, combining real-world practice from the entertainment industry with deep academic insight into negotiation theory and application. We're also joined by Grasvidas Jukna, whose expertise lies in strategic sourcing and complex negotiations, helping organizations achieve sustainable and long-term outcomes. From the legal perspective, Tiffany Kemp contributes deep expertise in contract law and commercial advisory, supporting negotiations where legal precision and commercial value must align. We welcome Moise Nubisi, a professional negotiator actively promoting and applying the SMARTnership model across France and Francophone Africa. And finally, Dr. Kjell Jensen, creator of the SMARTnership and Nego economic principles, ranked among the world's top 3 negotiation gurus and author of 27 books. Together, this panel of certified SMARTnership partners brings the insight, experience, and collaborative mindset needed to help set the direction for negotiation in 2026. Let's get started.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day to everybody, wherever you're calling from, or whether you're watching this live or the recorded version. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. I'm so happy and so proud that we've been able to gather the majority of our partners at the SMARTnership negotiations spread out throughout the world. We were just discussing pre-going live here, how many of us that are sitting in snow and cold and how many who are sitting in a nicer climate. So there was a lot of snow for a lot of us, I can promise you. We're going to have an exciting hour because we're going to talk about what are the shifts that we're going to see for this year, 2026. And it's based on research, it's based on knowledge, it's based on interview with clients, and it's based on the panel's combined knowledge experience within the field of negotiation. And I'm so happy that I have, as I said, the majority of our partners on board. So what we're going to see is that we'll have Tina from Denmark will be talking about how negotiators are still leaving values on the table and how we can fix that. Dr. Jason Meyerowitz will be talking about AI, a topic that obviously is returning as a main topic and has been a main topic for the last couple of years. Tiffany Kemp from the UK will be talking about from training to strategy, how to build a corporate negotiation system. I'll be focusing a bit on economics, how we create that, some proofs, some cases, and some success stories. Moise from France will be talking about trust currency, why trust is knowledgeable field and something that is really important. And Grasvidas from the Baltics will wrap up talking about his negotiation conference that is happening in April. We have some exciting news about that. Now, let me just kick off why we're here. Well, we're here because I think we have all realized around the world that things are changing. Geopolitically, things are changing. And, geopolitically, geopolitics is really just one big negotiation that is dressed like a politician. But it's just a negotiation, really. And I have a few things that I would like us to focus on and things that I have seen and we all have seen that will definitely change in 2026. And one of them will be that negotiation will be treated as a decision system, not a conversation. So that means negotiation is moving away from just what to say towards how decisions are made. Negotiation, this is a promise, will be a tremendous important part of decision-making in most organizations. We also see, and that's probably not a surprise to anybody, that AI will become a mandatory infrastructure, not a competitive edge. It will be shifting from just being an interesting tool to basic hygiene. It will be a solid, basic component of every negotiator's toolbox. And remember what I've been saying for a couple of years now, AI probably won't replace negotiators, but negotiators who don't use AI will be replaced by those who do. The third big major change will be value creation will beat price pressure. And this will happen even in hard markets. And why is that? Well, there's a limit to how much pressure you can put on somebody. At some point, they run out of profits. So all of us, to be more intelligent and create more wealth without the counterparties paying for it, have to change that focus. So price pressure is losing that effectiveness, not because markets are becoming soft. On the other hand, I would say they actually becomes harder, but because value asymmetry is just becoming visible. The fourth thing out of the five things we're seeing as a major change will be trust will become more measurable. Our research within the SMARTnership organization have proven that trust in negotiation can actually be measured to more than 30% of the value. So in negotiation where trust is high, you can capitalize more than 30% additional value compared to a negotiation where trust is low. And then the last thing, and this may be a surprise, especially coming from an organization like ours, is that trading will collapse into strategy or become irrelevant. So that means that we strongly believe that standalone negotiation training is losing impact, not because training is bad, simply because behavior without a system support doesn't stick. So one of the things we'll see is that organizations need to focus on more than just doing training. They need to focus on how to change their behavior. Now, let me welcome Tina Anneberg to the stage. And Tina, would you share with us how negotiators are still leaving value behind, what we mean by that, and how we fix it?
Absolutely. And first, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very excited for this panel discussion. So one of the themes that I'd love to cover is why is most value lost even before the first offer? And as you say, we are leaving value behind. And please notice the before the first offer, because the problem that we are seeing is that there is an enormous amount of value that is being lost even before we are sitting down together, meaning that many critical choices has already been made, often unconsciously, before we are sitting there. That also means that we have maybe already made assumptions about what we believe is negotiable, what we believe is non-negotiable, and what the other party cares about, but without actually knowing it. All of this is impacting how we prepare for our negotiation, meaning that we are doing multiple negotiations with ourselves and with our organization before we are even sitting at the negotiation table. This also means that we predict, even before we are sitting there, what could be the outcome. And that often leads to, first of all, a weak framing. And it becomes too narrow. Let's imagine that we have a commercial team, let's say it's on the sales side, and they are often too focused on the price. And one of the things that happens is that they are internally arguing towards their management that they will not be able to solve this negotiation and land the deal if they are not lowering the price, because this must be what their counterpart is concerned with. They are not thinking about what kind of value could we look into, what about risk, timing, quality, or other alternatives that they could look into. It also means that they are focused on where can we give something away, like how do we prepare, which generally speaking, it is a good idea to know what kind of concessions can I make in my negotiation. But it's pretty bad when you have not thought about what can I get in return. So we need to think about what can we give, but also what do we want to get in return, that we are not having these unmanaged concessions during the negotiation. And a lot of this is back to the preparation and the mental work that we are doing with ourselves even before we are sitting there. And maybe the most important one that I would mention here is that we have not tested the assumptions, meaning we have already made up our mind what might be our counterparts' constraints, what is their priorities, what would they have redlined. And overall, it's good to think about it, but it's not good to only walk in with one scenario where you have made up your mind on what is it that we are going to negotiate, because you have prepared already to lower your offer without being curious. So now you ask, Kel, how do we fix it? We fix it by walking into the negotiations, being prepared with more than one scenario, and also with being curious, testing the assumptions, having prepared what can we give and what would we like to get in return, or what could we ask for to get in return. That we are not throwing away and leaving money on the table even before we have tested with the counterpart that we are negotiating with what could be their priorities. Do they see other potentials? If I am opening up and disclosing what is my constraints, they might be able to help you out. And this is the mindset that we need to change into the negotiation, being more explorative from the beginning. And now I mentioned doing some scenario planning, and not that I want to jump into the next topics too fast, but one thing that could help you on the scenarios is starting with A and ending with I. AI is a very helpful friend in terms of preparing various scenarios that you can prepare yourself, that you are in a position where you have not already decided on the worst possible negotiation outcome before you are entering the negotiation room. That was a long monologue. And if anyone have something to add, now is the time where I'm making a short pause that you can jump in. Tiffany.
Yep.
Hi, Tina. That was really interesting. And what really resonated with me there is that often when we go into negotiations with curiosity and start asking questions about what's important to the other party, we have to make sure that we listen to it. Because if we've gone in with a load of preconceived ideas about what matters, sometimes your counterparty will be giving you precious jewels to help you find a really good value outcome. But you're so focused on playing the script that you had in your mind before you went into the room that you just let those jewels drift on by you and you don't capitalize on them. So I think that's the one thing I'd want to add to that. They're really great observations, but making sure that we really listen and pay attention to what we get back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree with you.
I was just curious, sorry to interrupt. Grace Readers, you have been extremely successful advisory in advisory services, helping organization capitalize value. Based on what Tina just shared with us, where do you see the majority of your clients have, I would say, lost focus, missed value before you stepped in and helped them?
No, I think that the biggest thing where people are missing value is like they have certain rules in negotiation, and the majority of the negotiators worldwide, and I also do my research in Lithuania, that 2/3 of negotiators are negotiating by instinct, which means they do not know how to negotiate. They probably know what others are doing, and this is a problem because if you demonstrate power, then everybody knows where it leads to. And when we start to fight in negotiation, everybody knows where it leads to. But cooperation, SMARTnership thing is quite new for many of negotiators. And once they do not know how to use it, even if they are good listeners, sometimes it doesn't help because they do not know how to use it.
Right.
Starting to use the power games, and this ends to battle where everybody fights.
Right.
So basically, this is a one topic.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you so much, Grace Readers. That was very useful. Just before we move on, Tina, we got a great question from Mohammed, which is very relevant. We get this question a lot. What if the other parties are not following the same school of thoughts? I mean, they don't reciprocate the trust. It's a great question. But what do we do, Tina?
Absolutely. Great question. So first and foremost, one of the things that we are basing collaboration on is also establishing trust. However, I would say in the case of preparing for the negotiation and not leaving value before you have even entered the negotiation, whether there is trust or not, these elements still apply in terms of not being too narrow in your mindset of preparation. Second, when you are sitting there in the negotiation, and as Gracivilas just said, this is a new way of approaching more collaborative negotiations, and some people don't want to show this kind of trust in the counterpart. one thing that I have had great success with and that I find useful in my negotiations is that you take one step back and try to lift the negotiation to a higher level, where you talk about what is it that we want to achieve, to set the scene, and as we call it, set the rules of the game. Like, talk about how are we to conduct this negotiation even before we are starting, because trust is essential for us. And one thing, because this might sound easier than it is, but back to the point of Tiffany, asking questions is very relevant for getting to a higher level of trust, like showing understanding and willingness to understand, not only being the one shouting to be understood.
Thank you so much, Tina. Wonderful. Jason, we are going to hear on AI and negotiation. And I think we all heard a lot about AI and negotiation. But what I often find, Jason, when I deliver a keynote, is when I ask the audience, how many of you have actually professional be using AI in negotiation? I mean, not using ChatGPT to figure out where you should dine in Rome or what's the right route to go somewhere, but actually using it professionally in negotiation. A minority of the professional in the room are raising their hand. So, Jason, share a little bit about us, how we see AI moving on from experiment to standard practice in negotiation.
It would be my pleasure. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that artificial intelligence is the most significant technological change in our lifetime. And everything that we've seen so far is just its inception. Really, what's coming in the next several years is going to blow out of the water all the incremental change that's happened with AI so far. So be prepared for a real shift in how it's being used, how much it's being used. We've already seen it affect everything from the mundane individual activities like cooking or dining out to the big things that are happening on the political landscape in the business world. And that's really going to happen even more frequently. As Keld mentioned all the way at the beginning of this presentation, people aren't in danger of losing their jobs to AI, but they are in danger of losing their jobs to people who know how to use AI properly. And when it comes to negotiation, there are so many opportunities to use AI properly. It's something that can help you prepare, obviously. Before you start your negotiation, you can be using artificial intelligence to help you generate questions to ask. It can help you improve your alternative, what we call your next best alternative, or what's commonly known as BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. The idea of where you have your leverage coming from what you would do if you were going to walk away during negotiation. You can improve that significantly by having more research done. You can use AI to help you collaborate during the negotiation. If someone asks you a question and you're stuck thinking of the best way to answer it, you can actually use that to help you generate additional ideas. Some of our research has actually looked at what happens when people are negotiating using AI compared to what happens when they're not using AI. And we've looked at what happens when one side is using it, and we've looked at what's happened when both sides are using it. And some of the things that we learned from this are really powerful. The first thing to note is that in terms of time, people are able to finish things in a much more timely fashion when both sides are using AI. That's probably not too surprising. The availability of technology speeds things up. But basically, that means that negotiations that were otherwise not going to be complete because people ran out of time and had to walk away can now actually lead to clear resolutions. Additionally, in terms of value that was created, we're seeing more value that's being created when AI is being used. That means that both sides, both the buyer and the supplier, both the buyer and the seller, however we're looking at it, are better off when they're negotiating using AI as a tool. But what we found that is particularly important, I think, to our understanding of SMARTnership and our understanding of how negotiation really needs to change in the coming years is that what else has changed is the level of trust. And it's increased in a positive fashion when both sides are using AI. I want to repeat that because that's so important. When both parties are using artificial intelligence, the level of trust goes up. Now, some people might be suspicious of that, think, well, why would the level of trust go up? You're not negotiating directly, you're negotiating using AI. Wouldn't that make people less trustworthy? Well, what happens when one side is using AI, is that trust does indeed go down. If only one side is using it because they become a little bit more suspicious of that person, they don't sound as authentic. But what happens when both sides are using AI is that people tend to become more transparent. Information that we kind of psychologically want to keep to ourselves, we're more willing to share if the AI shares it for us because it becomes less of a risk. We feel like the AI is the one that's assessing whether we have to worry about the other side using that information against us, and the AI just goes ahead and delivers that information to the other side's AI, who then reciprocates. And when we see both sides sharing maximum information, you increase the actual trust between both sides, and you're able to come to those better conclusions. Going back to what Tiff said about curiosity and asking good questions, that's what the AI can do. That's what the AI can do because it can supersede our human tendency to approach negotiation with fear, with trepidation, with anxiety, and all of those things can be limited by the use of this tool. And this is something that's only going to change tenfold in the coming years. So in 2026, I suspect that more negotiators are going to be using AI, more companies are going to be adopting this approach, and that means that people are going to be more trusting and more trustworthy. And that really is what's going to see our fundamental shift here. Not just that people are going to be better prepared and have better alternatives. That is going to happen, and that's a big deal. But more fundamentally, people are going to be more trusting because they're going to be using AI as the tool that helps them build that trust. And that's really where we're going to see a lot of change in the way negotiation is done, to be more collaborative and more use of tools like SMARTnership rather than the dangerous, narcissistic, one-sided type of negotiation that you've seen dominate the landscape over the last several years.
Very interesting, Jason. Thank you so much. That was very useful. Kevin, I completely forgot to introduce Kevin. I apologize. Kevin is equally important as everybody else. Kevin is our intern. And I'm asking you, Kevin, being the youngest in the room. So I got this stereotype that younger people are more ready for AI than the rest of us that are older. Kevin, how do you see AI and negotiations? Do you have anything you want to add to what Jason is talking about here?
Yeah, of course. What I see a lot here in my universities, at least, they're trying to ban AI. So they want us to not use it. And I mean, in maybe a better ecological sense, it makes sense to ban it. But indeed, young people are more, I think, inclined to use AI because it's just another tool, I would say. Like, we are already used to the whole growing up with phones and then rapid changes. So AI is just one more change for us. I try to use it as well, but I also try to, try to still develop myself outside of it. So for me, it's also important to know what I'm doing and then try to improve what I'm doing using an artificial intelligence, for example. So I think that's the short answer.
Great. Well, that was very useful, Kevin. Jason, we got one question here I would love you to answer. We got on the screen. While you are doing face-to-face negotiation and dealing with clients, AI won't help at all. You cannot prepare for questions you'll receive in advance. What would be your reply to that one, Jason?
Great question. I think there's two things to keep in mind here. One is that part of what you're doing is preparing, and that means that you do a better job of anticipating what questions will come because you ask AI in advance to help you think about what the other side might ask. And that means that when those face-to-face questions come up, you've already thought them through because you've used that tool to help you come up with those questions and think through effective answers. And the second thing is that you actually can use AI when you're negotiating face-to-face. People always have their devices with them. We encourage everyone to have access to, at the very least, a laptop or an iPad so that you can take notes, so that you can present spreadsheets, so that you have shared public information like that. And you can also be using that same laptop at the same time to type in information about what you were just asked and look for a response to that. So you absolutely do have access to those tools. You also probably have a smartphone with you. You have multiple people on your team. If you're negotiating one-on-one, this is, of course, much more difficult, but I would never recommend an important business negotiation being done one-on-one. You always want at least 3 people on your team. That's something we talk about in our workshops a lot. And that means that there's should be someone who's there, who's available to plug in those questions to AI and come up with good answers that they can feed to your lead negotiator.
Thanks, Jason. And last question before we have to move on. I know this topic is of great interest to everybody. I can see that on the amount of comments. Is from Catherine here. She's asking, how do you avoid AI hallucinations? I think that's something that we all are curious about, right, Jason? How do we avoid that meltdown where AI just comes up with a crazy answer?
This is something I've done a deep dive into because I deal with this as well during my day-to-day job as a professor. I have students who are turning in things all the time that have hallucinated references and gives them a general misunderstanding. And so it's definitely something that I think is a real issue. Now, first of all, I want to emphasize that part of what I'm talking about when I say that we see a fundamental shift happening is that the last 3 years have been the nascency of AI. And so that means hallucination has been so much more prominent than it's going to be. A year from now, 5 years from now, I don't think hallucination is going to be an issue at all. And so, yes, it is something we have to deal with in the short term, but it's not something that's going to be an issue long term. And then in the short term, part of this is about becoming a better prompt engineer. And what I mean by that is make sure that you type into AI what it is that you're looking for very carefully. One of the things that I will like to add to a lot of my my prompts is make sure that you read through what you've written and double check everything to make sure that these are real sources, for instance. And if you add that information to any prompt that you put into ChatGPT or Gemini or anything like that, it will double check those sources and remove anything that it's come up with that it has hallucinated. So you actually just need to understand how to use your AI tool a little bit more effectively. And that's something, again, that we teach in our trainings. There's plenty of other courses and books out there specifically about how to use AI effectively. But this is really a user problem more than it is a technology problem, because the people who are using AI most effectively know how to avoid hallucinations altogether.
Thank you, Jason. I can just throw in a little bit of advertising here and tell everybody that we are offering a one-day specific workshop on AI and the use of AI in negotiation, and all of the partners you see on the screen right now are able to deliver that. And on top of that, we have a LinkedIn learning program that those of you who have a premium LinkedIn subscription, I think it's called, you can get that for free. And then we do have an online self-paced training program on AI as well. That's very popular. Thank you so much, Jason. That was splendid. Tiffany, you're going to talk about something that I find is truly important as well, especially going into 2026, and that is from training to strategy, building a corporate negotiation system. And Tiffany, I don't know whether you agree with me. I was kind of provoking when we were starting off saying that, negotiation have to collapse into a strategy. So the standalone negotiation training may die, and I'm actually serious about that. What's your take on that, Tiffany? We haven't talked about that previously before this session.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And it's really interesting because I was writing to you over Christmas, as you do. And it was one of the things that was uppermost in my mind, because when we're delivering training, one of the big challenges is how do you actually make sure people are going to be able to go out and use it? I don't know about you, I've been on loads of training over the years, and when it's good training, I come away at the end and I'm all full of buzz and enthusiasm, and I think this is fantastic. I want to get out there and start using my new wisdom, whatever it is. But then what happens half the time is you get back to your desk and try to start using it, and it just doesn't work in your real life work environment. And it might be, I don't know, maybe you've been learning about stakeholder management and using a RACI matrix to clarify roles and responsibilities. I think that's a fantastic way of doing it, something that I teach myself. But then you get back into the office, none of your stakeholders can agree which pot you've put them in, and your boss is mad at you because you've spent so long in their world faffing around with RACI rather than responding to the big stack of emails that they sent you. And that's a really crystal example of the disconnect between coming back into your organization as a trained individual with a set of knowledge and maybe a set of skills that you want to use, and actually having a fertile environment in which you can use it. It's like gardeners amongst you will know, you can scatter your seed, but if it's not on nicely prepared ground and it's not nurtured and watered, it's not going to deliver the best crop. So from our perspective, when it comes to negotiation training training people is a good start. It's nice if people have a clue what they're doing. I speak as one who has spent quite a long time trying to figure out what it is I'm doing. But trained individual negotiators really need to have a comprehensive and consistent corporate negotiation system to operate in if the organization is really going to make the most of its negotiation approach. And that concept of a corporate negotiation system is something that I think is still relatively new in the market. It's strange because creating systems and tools and processes, that's something businesses have been doing for a very long time. You know, if you go on your corporate website and you have a look at all of the ISO certifications that you've got, for example, you might cringe at audit time because somebody's got to come around and look at how well you're following your corporate processes and complying with all of the mechanisms that have been put in place to support you with your regulatory compliance, improving the quality of whatever it is that you make in your business, and generally generating better outcomes. A corporate negotiation system does exactly the same thing, but it does it for your approach to how you engage with your suppliers, with your partners, and of course with your customers. And all of that will help the negotiators in your business to deliver consistent, high quality outcomes. And in theory, it reduces the skill level needed, which is, as Keld says, it's a little bit controversial from a negotiation training business. But the better the tools and the frameworks that you have, the less individual talent and skill you start to rely on. So one of the case studies that really caught my interest on this front was one of our SMARTnership clients, Staticus. They're a European construction company, and they introduced SMARTnership and nego economics frameworks across their business. So they did train people, they did do that bit, and having introduced these frameworks, they used them to build themselves a consistent negotiation process. So those of you that are familiar with nego economics will know that one of the things we talk about is identifying what are your negotiation variables, what are they worth, and what are the other parties' negotiation variables and what are they worth to them. And Keld referred earlier to value asymmetry, and that's a key cornerstone of nego economics. But it's quite hard work, and it takes a fair amount of research and intellectual effort to identify those variables and value them. So at Staticus, they identified, valued, and prioritized the typical negotiation variables in their business, and they created a unified negotiation playbook that made it really easy for their negotiators to implement the SMARTnership negotiation strategy in the business. And it paid off. Even though construction, it's a low margin, high risk industry, they doubled their profitability. And at the same time, rather than what is very common in that particular sector is upsetting suppliers, they managed to strengthen their supplier relationships along the way, which I thought was quite an improvement. But they couldn't have done that just by training people. They needed to have a corporate negotiation system and a consistent set of tools that empowered those people to get out there and do it. So the organization did the heavy lifting, effectively. It did all the thinking and the clever maths and all of that lot once, and enabled every negotiator to benefit from it, rather than expecting all of them to reinvent the maths every time they entered into a new negotiation, which is a big ask, I have to say. And I do think is a real challenge for organizations seeking to grow adoption, because if they make it too hard work for their negotiators, people just won't do it. So I think if an organization's looking to move from a training focus to a strategic focus, first of all, obviously, they need to choose their negotiation strategy. We think SMARTnership's a really good one. Other negotiation strategies do exist. Once they've chosen the negotiation strategy that they want their organization to follow, train their people with the basic skills and tools that they need to do it. But when they want to start delivering on it, they need to systematize it. And so that means, first off, defining within their organization how they expect negotiations to be conducted. What do they actually want their teams to do? How do they want them to go about this? Secondly, building the tools that make it easy to do the right thing. Give people the support and the infrastructure and the materials that they need to do this well. And finally, as with every process, every system, you've got to test and measure. So measuring outcomes, seeing what's working well, what's working less well, and feeding that back into the system so that you get a loop of continuous improvement. And once you've got that corporate negotiation strategy in place and all of the infrastructure that underpins it, then negotiating well and effectively ceases to be daunting. It ceases to be a scary activity that people get anxious about or avoid. And it just becomes an obvious, natural part of the flow of doing business. So I think although it is quite a scary thought as a trainer and a sharer of knowledge, that ultimately we want to make ourselves redundant. We don't want the business to continue doing this. Yes, thank you. That is the company that we're talking about.
I think that's really great, Tiff. Thank you so much. I think, we all experiences that we have corporation that calls us and says, you know what, we have a department that we need to have trained in the science of negotiation. Could you come and help us? We have 3 hours. And it's I don't know whether to laugh or cry when I got a request like that, Tiff, right? Because, as I start off saying, negotiation is moving into the a choice of strategy in the organization as well. And very quickly, McKinsey did a study last year where they found that about 93% of CEOs in Fortune 500 organizations in the US believe that in the next 3 years, they will establish a chief negotiation officer. They found negotiation to be that important at that level. And that's one of the many reasons why we believe that negotiation standalone training will be removed, because basically, Tiffany, as you talked about right here, there's a big risk, there's a waste of money if you don't implement that strategy further into the organization. So it was spot on. I love what you were sharing right there, Tiff. Jason, could I ask you to share on this one? Jason, you and I, we've been doing trainer programs for clients as well. Could you share just very briefly what your experience is when we actually train a trainer within the organization to help that organization implement the thoughts and thinking and strategy further?
It's beneficial in two ways. One is that we know from educational research that the best way to learn something is to actually become a teacher of it. So the people that we bring on as champions become real experts in negotiation because they're actually teaching that SMARTnership philosophy. And the second way is it allows us to spread our message a little bit more thoroughly than we could just as a team. You see how big we are, but so we want to have emissaries everywhere we can.
Exactly. It's been very, very useful. And obviously the organization, as you said, Jason, can spread the message much faster than we're able to. Thank you so much, Tiff. That was wonderful. No surprise, we're a little bit behind time, so I will share my bit a little bit quicker, and that's about negoeconomics. Negoeconomics is one of our cornerstones. And very quickly, for those of you who don't know what it is, we've been using that term already. Negoeconomics is just short for negotiation economics, and it's an asymmetric value that exists between variables between two organizations. And let me just ask you a question. Why do two commercial organizations ever negotiate? I believe they only negotiate to create and distribute value. Full stop. That's the only reason two commercial organizations ever choose to negotiate, to create and distribute value. And negoeconomics helps them do just that, because it has a focus on developing 2 + 2 generates more than 4. So an asymmetric value, very quickly, is the difference between your cost and my value, or my cost and your value. Let me give you a super quick example. Cost of capital, the price on money. If your price on money is 2% and my price on money is 5%, the asymmetric value, negoeconomics, is the difference, the 3%. The one with the lowest cost of capital should finance the deal. We have more than 300 variables that can create negoeconomics. It could be delivery, installation, warranty, warehousing, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. It's not easy, though, as Tiff pointed out, because it requires transparency, honesty, and as Tina said, we have to negotiate on how to negotiate before we start negotiating. So we actually had a question early on today from Mr. Lars Dinesen, who is saying, how do you manage the value left on the table before we meet in tender situation where scope is set? What method in SMARTnership would you propose to use to open up the tender scope and to explore all possible value? That is a splendid question, Lars, because tenders is something that keeps me awake at night. Because tenders is the poison to generating economics. I actually just finished a couple of weeks ago a big research where we compared more than 4,000 negotiations, negotiation conducted, or that's not negotiations, but pure tenders compared to negotiation, the exact same topic, same supplier, same product and service and what have you. And in every single case, negotiation where the parties were negotiating were superior both for the supplier and the buyer financially. So tender is not the greatest way to create mutual value. I do know we have to use tenders, especially those of you who are involved in public tendering and public procurement, but you can obviously use it in that case as well. And just very briefly, Tina, I know you've been involved in that world. How do you see we can use economics and perhaps especially public tenders?
Yeah, so just to differentiate, as you are mentioning, because we have tenders without negotiations and we do have tenders with negotiations. So the first one, as you said, without negotiations, you cannot do much once the tender has been released. However, I was fortunate enough to be invited by one of the public institutions in Denmark who are doing only tenders without negotiations to give them input on how should they design their process before they are tendering, because they also have an interest in preparing better, that it's easier for the vendors to actually deliver a good proposal, meaning we need to have as much dialogue early on. You cannot do like pure SMARTnership in a tender without any negotiations, because there won't be any possibility to talk unless you do it prior to the tender being released. On the other hand, when we have tenders with negotiations, which we also see a lot of, you do have a possibility to negotiate. So as you're saying, Kjeld, we see significantly better when we have a chance to negotiate. And this is where I believe that it's often very misunderstood in tender processes, because both the vendor and potentially also the organization publishing the tender, they believe we cannot talk to each other, which is not true. You have meetings where it's possible for you to present things. You have the possibility to ask questions and get answers. The only thing that you need to comply with is that this information needs to be given to everybody who is tendering in this process, which is fine when you are under a collaborative process, that you want to put forth the elements and the variables where you see here could be a possible downside or upside for us, and let's discuss that. So I have had very positive experience with it myself, getting things changed during a tender process by talking about what variables is in the contract, because it was difficult for us.
Thank you, Tina. Just to wrap up, I want to remind everybody that we know that up to more than 40% is often hidden value that we can discover through economics. And that's just not something we claim, it's something that we can prove as well. Our next topic is one that is very close to my heart. That is trust, or as we call it, trust currency, because trust is not a nice thing to have. It's a needed thing to have because it's a monetary value. And Moise, directly in from Paris, what is your take on trust, Moise? Oh, we can't hear you. I think you are muted, Moise.
Sorry, is that okay?
You are good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on this important topic of the SMARTnership model. Several organizations out there, although we are in 2026, are still treating trust as a nice to have, as we just mentioned. But in reality, it is not at all the case. When talking about the complex negotiation, what the company are facing is the price that the financial risk on which they are facing, There is the risk for their reputation. There is the risk for the long-term relation that they can build with their counterpart. And the thing on which all those relay is the trust, the level of trust they have each other with the partners or with the companies that they are dealing with. So what we can see on the field, and it is what I'm seeing as a procurement and contract manager, is you can have on paper two negotiation with exact same value, but when you go to execution, the result generally is very different. And when you dig a little bit, you can notice that the reason of this difference is not at all the competency or the experience from the negotiator at the table. The real reason is generally the level of trust between the party at the table. And let me share quickly a real example with you. I was involved in one negotiation where the party were discussing since more than 1 year. It was a huge company discussing. I'm working in the mining sector, and it's one of our partners. More than 1 year negotiation was ongoing. No decision was taken. And finally, the top management decided to change the team on both sides. Both sides decided to change the team, and within 3 months, the decision was taken, the agreement was found, and the topic was closed. So what we noticed, it was the exact same topic, the exact same discussion. They simply felt that we changed the teams from on both sides, and the new team arrived and develop more trust than what was being done by the previous team, because there was an historic discussion and other things that was blocking. We quickly we saw the difference, and this is one thing that is, as you say, can be easily measured on site and on field. And this observation that we have on field is also confirmed by the studies. And some of these studies is the one you've done, Kellen, thank you for that, which teach us that when you are in a low trust environment, the company that enter in negotiation in this field are forced to pay some hidden taxes, let's say it like that. These are the high level of friction. These are the defensive behavior that the party can have. These are the overhead legal costs. In the case I've just mentioned, we were ready to go to the court, and we even started the procedure at the court. When the team was changed, we decided to stop everything, and in 3 months it was settled. So when there is no trust, it is very difficult, and the parties are putting much more time, much more money, and much more energy, and they are destroying the relation. It is as simple as that. On the other side, when you are in a high trust environment, there is generally something exceptional that happens. You have easy information. The information are flowing very, very fastly. You can have you have less friction between the parties. You have less control, and the most important, you have the value that expands for the benefit of both parties. So the trust is not simply a soft skill, a soft value, excuse me. It's really something that can be measured, that can be capitalized. And this is one of the things that the organization out there, if they in 2026 they are intending to continue leading their market, to continue to improve the outcome of their negotiation, they really need to understand it and to integrate it in their own strategy, because without that, most of the organization will continue as they are doing today, asking, can we trust the counterpart when we're going to negotiation? Which, according to me, is not the good question, or is not the correct question. The real question, and the only one they should put, is what is the cost if we go to this negotiation without trust, without establishing a trust between the two parties, and without this, the result will remain as poor as it is today, and they will continue leaving value on the table. And I know it's not easy, and to arrive or to do that, there is a real need to shift the mindset, they shift the way they are thinking, and to integrate the trust in their management strategy to get more value when they go to negotiation. This is what
Right.
I think.
I love everything you said there, Maurice. That makes so much sense. Now, what is intriguing to me, and I have a question for you, Tiffany, in a second. What is interesting to me is that when we start talking about trust, I see a lot of people that sit there and just look out in the blue and thinking, yeah, whatever. They're saying it's important, and then they move on. And I can see it right now, for instance, when we start talking about AI, we were bombarded with comments and questions. When we started talking about trust, it's just silence. And trust is actually the foundation for anybody to be truly successful in negotiation. So, Tiffany, why is it so difficult for people to get into trust and integrate trust into negotiation? Because everybody agrees that's important, but it's just we can just hear crickets when we start talking about trust. Why is that, Tiffany?
Well, it goes back to the principle that everybody thinks everyone else is the problem. So I am trustworthy. I am good. I have genuine intentions, but them, no, they have bad intentions. They're bad guys. And I think what I loved about what Moise was saying was we're talking about the focus on trust, being able to trust your counterparty, but we kind of have to start with ourselves and being trustworthy, and any of you who have encountered me before will know that apart from cake and negotiation, my other passion is horses. And with horses, trust is an absolute foundation stone. You can't do anything if they don't trust you. And you've got half a ton of animal leaping around. It needs to trust you. And you need to be trustworthy and show your trustworthiness. And I think if we can do that in a negotiation environment, if we can demonstrate that we're worthy of their trust, then we can start to open those conversations. And I think what I love most about what Moise was saying is there's so much doom and gloom in the world. There is so much about, it's all going to hell in a handcart. But this message is so true and it's so inspirational because it's kind of saying we need to be good guys. We need to be good guys to make more money and have more successful businesses. And I think that's really lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jason, the last comment I have, Jason, do you remember we did a workshop where we had one participant, I never heard it before and I never heard it since, that said, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but what he said? He said, isn't it unethical to be honest and transparent in negotiation? Well, do I word that correctly?
Yeah, he was completely skeptical. We were saying, can we share this information? He said, well, aren't I being unethical if I'm honest with the other side? And it's really a challenge when we have this mindset. And I think that's one of the most important things that we do at the SMARTnership organization is that we change people's mindset, not to take too much time, but if you're playing a game of soccer, you'd much rather finish with 1-0 where you have 1 point and the other side has 0 points than 9-10 where you have 9 points and the other side has 10 points because you want to finish with more points than the other side. But negotiation is not at all like that. Think of it more like your house appreciation. What would you rather have? Your house appreciate $1 million and your neighbors appreciate $0, or your house appreciate $9 million and your neighbors appreciate $10 million? Sure, the other house appreciated more than yours, but you still have $9 million instead of $1 million worth of value. That's how we need to think about negotiation. It's not about beating the other side. It's about doing the best we can for ourselves.
Right. Love that example, Jason. Thank you. Last but not least, Grassroots, you're sitting in the Baltics, and Grassroots has done something that amazes me. About 2 years ago, I think, Grassroots, you called me and said, what do you think if I do a conference on negotiation? And I said, nah, I don't really buy that. I don't think that you will be able to attract people to a conference specifically on negotiation. And Grassroots didn't believe in me, thank God, so he did it. And the first year he attracted 300 people. Last year he did 600 people. And this year he's going to get 1,000 people attending a conference on negotiation. I have to say, Grassroots, I admire what you've been doing. And this year, and listen carefully, everybody, he even managed to get the president of Lithuania to attend and speak at this conference. So, Grassroots, share a little bit with us. How did you negotiate that success? Because that's obviously a negotiation as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the story, Kel. I should say that you were not the only guy who didn't believe in that. Because one which we're talking about conferences, the idea that I clearly was seeing the gap in negotiation scientists, because we have a lot of huge number of conferences all in every country. But if you would look to agenda and try to find out how many topics are related to negotiation, so probably you will see that there are some, but those who are, they are presenting FBI or other nice things, which is totally different to business negotiation. And that's why my idea was very simple. It should be something. It should be people who are really keen to see more about negotiation. And despite the fact that there were only several people who believed in that, I met my partner, and we together decided that yes, we should try, and we did. So the story ended like that this year we are expecting to have 1,000 participants. But also you mentioned that this year we'll be having former president of Lithuania participating in the conference, which is Dalia Grybauskaitė. And yes, she used to be politic, and we know how politics are related to trust and likability and all that stuff. Yeah, that's right. But Dalia Grybauskaitė is one of the most loved presidents of Lithuania, and she has great respect. And she did so much efforts in terms of negotiation, because her experience is not only about negotiating with parliament or whatever, but she was involved in a lot of negotiation, representing Lithuania, for example, in negotiation with EU, with International Monetary Fund, with World Bank. And also she had real negotiation with Russian dictator Putin. So that's why her, let's say, experience, it's really something which is totally different from business world, because it's geopolitical things, which are also very relevant, because every business is related to that. And that's why I'm very happy. And if you're asking how I did it, I can say very simple. I believe that it's possible, and it happened. So,
it's great.
very simple.
Yeah. Now, Grace Readers, it is an international conference, right? Everything is in English or is being simultaneously translated into English, right? So everybody can attend?
Yes, everybody can attend. So we have mixture, because part of the negotiation conference content will be in English, because we will be having you, Kjeld. Also, we'll have more speakers from abroad. Like Kjell Nordstrom from Sweden, like Greg William from US, who is body language expert, like Tom Mills from UK, who is procurement strategist, like Michael Gates from Finland, who is focusing on trust thing. And also it will be local presenters who will present in Lithuanian language. However, we'll be having similar translation. So don't worry about that. Everybody will understand everything. Just you need to take phones and everything fine. So everybody welcome.
Yeah, and I think it is without any doubt the biggest negotiation conference in Europe now, if not the world. I mean, I haven't actually heard about negotiation conferences with 1,000 people attending before. So it's amazing. And besides that, Chris Frutis, you've been focusing a lot on advisory services and have been helping a bunch of European companies negotiating better deals. And we actually have success stories on that, how you have helped them. So if anybody's interested in both the conference and advisory services from the entire panel, as you can see right here, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to share some of those stories. I think our time is up, unfortunately, because we could continue for hours with this wonderful panel here. So I want to first and foremost thank everybody of my certified SMARTnership partners here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope we can repeat this, because this is the first time we've done it. I thought it was great fun. Why not repeat that? I can see from the amount of people signing up that they thought it was lovely as well. Unfortunately, we have a bunch of questions we haven't had time to answer. I'll be happy to answer those on LinkedIn afterwards. And if any of my panelist colleagues would like to do that as well, please go ahead and do that. If you do have an interest in your specific market and area where you are, reach out to any of the people you see here. Grassroots is sitting in the Baltics, Jason is sitting in North America, Tina is sitting in the Nordic, Maurice is in France, and Tiffany is sitting in the UK, and Kevin is in the Netherlands. So we are basically everywhere where you want us. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much to the panel. And I wish you successful negotiations in 2026 and onwards. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Sometimes progress feels painfully slow, and waiting for results can be frustrating. Traditional negotiation can often feel like a standoff, leaving both sides drained. But with SMARTnership negotiation, collaboration speeds things up. Transform slow results into a launchpad for success. Discover the power of SMARTnership negotiation today.